Hello, brothers and sisters, thank you. It's a little warmer in Nevada than it was in Minnesota, and it is great to be here. Great to be here with my friend, Owen Hernstead, who, just so you know, he is such a good friend that when I was first running for Senate, and I had no money in that race, and I'd come out to Washington, D.C. when he was working for the machinist, and I'd stay on his couch. That is a true story. A good friend. I want to thank your president, Bob Martinez, your general vice president for transportation and host of this great conference, Situ Pantoja, your general secretary treasurer, Dora Cervantes, and I think we have a few Minnesota machinists out there. Somewhere. Where are you, man? Minnesotans are quiet. Okay, they're right over there. By the way, where are the Canadian? There. Okay, now you guys. Okay, as you know, I'm in Minnesota, so I can see Canada from my porch. And one of my most fond, disastrous political memories of any politician was when someone proposed building a wall across the border to Canada. Do you guys know who that was? Scott Walker, and he's gone. He actually did that, thanks to you. So it is an honor to be here with all of you, representing the 600,000 members of the IAM, the 600,000 members who helped us bring the House of Representatives back in 2018 to the People's House. You did that. Thank you. You did that all over the country. And that is just the beginning. You helped rebuild communities affected by the raging wildfires in the West and the floods in the Midwest. You sent your critical incident response team to support survivors when a gunman opened fire in Aurora, Illinois, killing 5 people, 2 of whom were IAM members. And after the devastation of Hurricane Maria, you partnered with airlines to fly goods and disaster relief to Puerto Rico. That's community. That's a shared story. That's ordinary people doing extraordinary things. So thank you, IAM. You are not just the backbone of our workforce, you are the backbone of our country. As you may have heard, I am running for President of the United States. And as you may have seen, I announced my candidacy in the middle of a blizzard. And the snow, of course, was mounting on my hair during the entire thing. It was fun because I later got to look at the video and watch myself grow old in 20 minutes. But when I made that announcement, the president sent out a tweet. And he called me Snow Woman. And then I wrote back a few hours later, I'd like to see how your hair would fare in a blizzard. I announced by that river, the Mississippi River, because I wanted to make a point as we stood there in the snow that I'm in the middle of the heartland. I don't come from money, but I have grit. And I have the grit to represent the people of this nation and to have their backs. And that comes from my roots, it comes from my story. So as Owen mentioned, I'm the granddaughter of an iron ore miner. My grandpa was the oldest of 9. When his parents got sick, he went to work as a teamster pulling a wagon, and then he went to work in the iron ore mines. And he would go down in a shaft in a cage every single day, 1,500 feet, with his black lunch bucket. And he wanted to be in the Navy, but he knew what he had to do. And he worked in those mines his whole life. And back then, it was very unsafe in those iron ore mines. And the whistle would sound nearly once a week, and all the wives would run to that mine to see if it was their husband that was killed or their son. And he still remembers, I still remember him telling me about this. My dad still remembers the coffins in the front of St. Mary's Church on a monthly basis for miners that had died. But it was unions that made his life safe. It was unions that did that. And as a result, my grandpa got to have 2 kids. He got to grow old with my grandma. He got to see his grandchildren, and that was all because of unions. And he saved money in a coffee can in his basement to send my dad to college. And my dad went to a 2-year community college from that hardscrabble mining town, went down, got a degree at the University of Minnesota in journalism, and got to cover everything and interview everyone from Chicago Bears coach Mike Ditka to Hubert Humphrey to Ginger Rogers. My mom, and that was all because of unions, my mom, she grew up in Milwaukee, which is going to be the site of our 2020 convention. Remember this? Great Milwaukee. And my mom grew up there. She grew up poor. She got her teaching degree. She came to Minnesota for one reason, because they had strong teachers' unions. And she was actually in the first Minneapolis teachers' strike in 1951, walking the picket line. She ended up teaching till she was 70 years old. So I stand before you today as the granddaughter of a union member, iron ore miner, as the daughter of a union member, newspaperman, and the daughter of a union member, teacher, and the first woman elected to the United States Senate from the state of Minnesota, and a candidate for the President of the United States. That is what unions are about. That is what unions are about. That's it. And none of this would have happened without unions. So as president, I will bring one clear but simple message to the White House. When union workers are strong, all workers are strong. When unions are strong, our economy is strong. And right now, my friends, we should be governing from opportunity. You know what we should be doing, the workforce training, increasing the minimum wage, making sure we have workers' benefits, making sure people are able to save for their retirement. We should be governing from opportunity because our economy is finally stable, because of your work, because of the work people all over this country. But instead, we are governing from chaos. What does that mean? Well, I can tell you what I think it means. It means that we should never, which this president did, we should never hold our federal employees and the employees of our federal contractors hostage. We should not be playing games with our federal employees. That's why, as president, I'll fight to guarantee back pay to our federal contractors during the government shutdown, because we need to protect our workers. We need to respect our workers, and that's why I am so proud of this union that fought for the flight attendant and flight crew rest periods in the FAA. You fought it and you won. That was the right thing to do. We need a smart and fair trade policy, Mr. President, not trade policy by tweet. And we need to change our current economic culture, like the one established by the Republican tax bill. You know what that does? That rewards companies for outsourcing work. That's what that did. Because economic strength and stability comes when there is shared prosperity. It happens when we have strong worker protections, when we have a strong worker NLRB, and when we have strong unions. It happens when, as my mentor, Senator Paul Wellstone, who we tragically lost way too young when his plane crashed, he said this: "We all do better when we all do better." That's what this election is about. I think we can all agree that America is at its best when we invent things, when we make things, when we think, and when we export to the world, right? When those ships are sending our goods one way instead of them all coming our way. So that is why I'm calling for a competitive agenda for America. What does it mean? Well, first of all, it means infrastructure. And I put out a $1 trillion infrastructure plan, something the president has been saying for a while, but it's a mirage. He's never shown how he's going to pay for it. Well, I showed how I was going to pay for it, and it will not be on your backs unless you have money in the Bahamas. Anyone? Okay, good. Because the way they did that tax bill, literally, the way they did the foreign tax rates, instead of taking the tax rates for each country when people send money over there, they did them as an average. You know how much money we can spend on rail and roads and bridges and airports if we bring that money? That alone is $150 billion, right? If we take that corporate tax rate that they went down to 21%, bring it up to 25%, that alone is $400 billion. America deserves infrastructure that is worthy of our country. Our country deserves good schools. I'm going to go over in Las Vegas to see one of the schools here that work. America deserves to have rail and bridges and roads, and deserves to have heat in their schools, and deserves to have everything that works so we can bring goods to market. Now, how did I get interested in this? Well, I live just a mile away from where that bridge fell down in the middle of a beautiful summer day, the 35W bridge. That's where I live. That's the bridge I go over every day with my family, and it's not just a bridge, it's an 8-lane highway. And as I said the day that it fell down, when a bridge like that shouldn't just fall down in the middle of America, but it did. And it wasn't because of the workers. It was because our country didn't have the backbone to invest in infrastructure, right? And that moment when that bridge fell down, the world was riveted on our state. And they saw a sense of community. They saw an off-duty firefighter tethered to the side of the river, diving in and out of those mangled cars and trucks, looking for survivors. They saw a tasty truck driver, Paul Eidsted, who could have saved his life by ramming into the back of a school bus full of kids. But instead, he veered off and he burned to death in that cab. They saw a school worker who was on that bus, and when it dropped 30 feet and was hanging precariously on the side of a guardrail, that school worker had the presence to get every single one of those 30 kids to safety off of the school bus. That is community, right? That is people doing extraordinary things when they are put up to a situation that they never thought would happen to them. That is people not running away from disasters, but running toward disasters. And that is a sense of community that sadly this administration tries to fracture every single day. Well, as your president, I will bring it back. It is what unions stand for, and it is what all of you stand for. You know the facts about transportation. Congestion is growing. 24 of the top 30 major airports may soon experience Thanksgiving peak traffic volume at least one day every week. We've got, with rail, as you know, we need to improve our passenger and freight rail. For more than 150 years, our rail network has been an essential part of our economy. Today, rail carries 1/3 of our exports and delivers 5 million tons of freight and 85,000 passengers every single day. So we have to end this funding gap when it comes to rail. I personally love rail. I love traveling on rail. I always say it's the one place that my husband and I can go if we take a train on vacation where we don't get into an argument about directions. So I'm really into rail, and I think we should be doing more on the passenger and the freight side. We need to end the digital divide for rural America, and how do we do that? By getting high-speed internet to every household in this country by 2022. And by the way, if Iceland can do it, America can do it. That's true, Iceland's done it. We need to leverage the funding that's out there, the public funding, to also get investment in private infrastructure. All right. Second for this competitive agenda is antitrust. Now, what this is about, you go back in time, and the unions played a major role in this, to what they called the Gilded Age, where the rail tycoons, the oil tycoons, where people who had a lot of power were consolidating, so you really had one company running things. What did that mean for wages? Well, it means that wages went down because there was no competition, and everyone was owned by one company. That's when you had the Pullman strike, right? That's when the Haymarket strike in Chicago. That's what that was about. It was about monopoly power. Well, guess what? We are now in our new Gilded Age. The companies are different, but it's the same kind of thing that's happening right now, where workers' power gets lessened and wages can go down when you don't have enough competition. In the rail industry, we're down to 4 Class 1 carriers that are carrying 90% of the traffic. That's the same number that we have on the monopoly board, right? You've seen the consolidation in the airline industry. I remember asking the CEO of Delta Airlines about what they were going to do when you see this consolidation happening. Well, guess what? Unions are the leverage that we have. Unions can take on consolidation and can help workers for better wages. And I have been working on this issue for a long time, and I know it sounds kind of boring to talk about, but I'm telling you, when there's only 2 online travel industries and people are thinking they're checking all these sites to get better deals, when in fact they only have 2 sites, that is not competition. That is faking people out. In the farm area, you've got 2 companies now controlling 80% of the seeds. And a lot of times they're using all these different names, but it is really consolidation. And that's why I proposed 2 bills. One is to beef up the Justice Department and the FTC by paying what will be a drop in the bucket for these major corporations when they merge, to make sure that we have the funding to be as sophisticated as these tycoons that are taking on the mergers. The second is to change the standard, to look at what's happening in the tech industry and the kind of monopsonies, that's what they call them, where people are controlling everyone under them. Because I'm telling you, when things get too big, workers lose. And that's why we will take on antitrust, and as your president, I will aggressively enforce the antitrust laws, because consolidation is not good for workers. Finally, this is about a fair shot for our families. And it was mentioned the pharmaceutical industry and the prices. So at the State of the Union, I brought as my guest a woman named Nicole Smith-Holt. And she had a son who was 26 years old. He was a restaurant manager in the suburbs in the Twin Cities. And he's diabetic. And when he was on his parents' insurance, he was okay, he could afford the drugs. But then when he was on his own, the price of insulin for him was $1,200 a month. $1,200 a month for a drug that's been around for a century. For a drug that used to cost $18 a vial, it's now $1,200 a month. So what did he do? He did what a lot of people do. He started rationing the insulin so he would have smaller and smaller amounts so it could go faster. He died. That happened in our country. And pharma thinks they own Washington. They literally have 2 lobbyists for every member of Congress. Well, they think they own Washington, but they don't own me. And let me tell you what we need to do. I know you're going to be hearing from Senator Sanders today, and Bernie and I have a bill that we've done together for quite a while that will allow us to get less expensive drugs from Canada, yay, to create competition. We also should unleash the bargaining power of 43 million seniors and allow them to lift the ban on negotiating under Medicare and get better prices for everyone in this country. That's what we need to do. And we need to stop the practice, and this is a bipartisan bill I've got, where Big Pharma actually pays off generic companies. This is what they do to keep their products off the market. That's what they do. Guess what that means for you? That means like 1 EpiPen. Remember when those prices went up? It's because there was no competition. So we need to take back our healthcare system, to move to universal healthcare, to stop the administration's actions where they're trying to kick people off their insurance for pre-existing conditions, to make sure that we preserve excellent healthcare plans like you've got with IAM, and to make sure that we stop this administration from repealing the Affordable Care Act. That's wrong. We should be building on it and not taking it away. Last thing, wages. When I first got to the Senate, we increased the federal minimum wage. Guess what? We haven't done it for nearly a decade. It is time to increase the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. That will help all of you. That will help our unions. And this also means contracting that works for America. In my job before I was a senator, I was the Hennepin County Attorney. It's our biggest county in Minnesota. And I was responsible to enforcing the prevailing wage in my county. But I didn't just do that. I had a lawyer that was real good at it, and we helped every county in the state because prevailing wage laws should be enforced. That helps our workers. And it means retirement security for our workers and working together to save our pension plans. I've been fighting for this as a senator. I've been listening to your union when these issues come up because I think when promises are made, promises should be kept when it comes to our pensions. We must stop the attack on our unions. And you know, a lot of this, it is about policies like some of the things I've talked about today, but a lot of this is where you are in your heart, right? What your background is. Are you really going to fight for workers? Do you see it as part of moving our economy forward? Are you just going to give lip service to it? I think you know where I'm coming from. We can do this. Look at what we have done in just the last 2 years. I was on that inaugural stage when Donald Trump got sworn into office. I was sitting there as the clouds were kind of coming down on us and it was starting to rain. It was not a happy day. I was actually sitting between Bernie and John McCain, and I took a picture of the three of us together, and it went viral because some reporter took a picture of me taking the picture, and it said, "Woman in gold coat takes picture with Bernie Sanders and John McCain." And the next day, the picture went all over the internet, and the Women's March said, "This is why we march." Well, from that day forward, from that inaugural stage forward, you look at what happened the next day, we had millions of people peacefully marching, joining with unions, taking a page out of your playbook and marching all over this country. You go forward into the days, people spontaneously showing up at airports to protest when some of those mean-spirited orders come out. You go forward into the summer when all 48 Democrats stood up with 3 Republicans and stopped the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, which would have meant millions of people lost their health care coverage. You go into the fall in this incredible victory for decency and dignity when Doug Jones won the Senate seat in the state of Alabama. That happened, and that happened because all of you, and you fast forward to 2018 where we won races in places like Iowa and took over the governorship of Kansas, and yet, yes, beat Scott Walker in the state of Wisconsin. That is the arc of justice that we are on. That is how we walk with everyone that believes that this should be the people's country and not Donald Trump's country. So I want to thank you. I'm going to win this election, and just like you did it in 2018, we're going to win this for working people in 2020 and take back the White House. Thank you, IAM. Thank you, everyone.